Right, this next video is about bay parking. Now, bay parking is only going to be asked, or your examiner will only be able to ask you to do it at the test centre. Okay, so because you'll be at the test centre at the beginning, at the end of your test, he's only going to ask you to do it at the beginning or at the end of your test. Now, there are some issues with us practicing bay parking in the test centre because the test centre is used quite a lot. Obviously, every hour there's a test pretty much. So what we tend to do is we use different types of car parks. So a parking space basically tends to be about the same sort of size. So depending on obviously where we can go on your lessons to do your bay parking, we might be using a Tesco's or a Morrison's or something very similar to that sort of thing. Now, it doesn't really matter, but we will be discussing how it is at the test centre because there is a small difference. Now, the small difference is that the manoeuvring space that you have at the test centre tends to be quite limited. So if you don't get into the parking space straight away, then there's not a great deal of room to drive forwards to rescue it. Okay, and that's something we'll be talking about a bit later. So the examiner would have come out, he would have done his show me tell me, he would have asked you to get in the car and put your seatbelt on, and he'll be checking the car. Now, if he's going to ask you to bay park right at the beginning of the test, you'll be in the parking space. Okay, so we're in a Tesco's car park, we're parked in a parking space. Okay, there's no cars to my immediate left or to my immediate right. The examiner's instruction will be to take the vehicle forwards into a position either to the left or to the right at 90 degrees. He will then ask you, when safe to do so, to reverse the vehicle back into the same parking space or something similar. Okay, he'll then say to you, drive on when you're ready. So, as we always do when we're moving away from the side of the road, the first thing we would do is obviously start the car, and then we would use the prepare, observe and move routine. Okay, now because I'm moving forwards, I would need to make sure that I check my right hand side last. Again, I'm looking for hazards that might be around me, and because it's a car park, there might be actually cars to my left and to my right. There might be more pedestrians, more cyclists, so more risk basically. So as much as you might think I'm in a car park space I don't need to check, the examiner's expectation is he would like you to check quite thoroughly. Okay, so I'm at the biting point in first gear, my feet are perfectly still. I check my left shoulder all the way around through all the door mirrors, past all the seat belts, all the way around to the right hand side. And I don't need to signal as there's nobody there. Now, the issue of signalling from leaving the parking space is potentially if you do this at the test centre, the examiner will come out last and will wait for all the cars to have left the car park. But obviously if there is somebody to see you signal and it will benefit from you telling everybody you're going to be turning to the left or right, then I would suggest that you signal. If there isn't anybody, then no signal is required. Okay? So, having had a good look around and acted on what you see, the first thing to do is to drive the car forwards, okay? And you basically just drop the handbrake and leave your clutch foot still. Now, as the car comes forwards, you don't turn the steering wheel at all. You're waiting basically for the door mirrors and the steering wheel to go out of the parking space. So it will leave the parking space about now. Good look to your right and left to see if it's safe to carry on. And then you steer everything it will do whilst the car is moving, either to the left or to the right. Now, my preference is to the left, and you will have a preference. We will practice both left and right, but you will have a particular favourite. Well, the choice is yours as to which way you steer, either to the left or to the right. Most people try to do it to the left though, because it's not necessarily an optical illusion. When you try to reverse to the right hand side, the observation is a bit more funky. Okay, so again, just try and do it to the left if you get the choice. Okay. Now, as the vehicle goes round, again, we're doing less than 1 mile an hour. It's really, really painfully slow. Okay, I'm going to check my mirrors to make sure it's safe to slow down. Then I'm going to keep the car moving, but I'm going to steer 1.5 turns until the car now goes back straight. The moment we're straight, I can gently push the clutch down, put my foot on the brake, keep my feet still, and then handbrake neutral to secure the vehicle. And now I'm at 90 degrees to the parking space. Okay, so I've driven up and across. Alright, I'm now going to try and get back into either the same parking space or something that's very similar. Now, the rule I'm going to use is on the car you'll see 3 blue spots, and they're on the the passenger front door. Okay, now we use the centre one, and the reason why there are 3 is because reference points are slightly different for people. Okay, different heights, different sizes, different being able to bend and twist. So we have 3 reference points, but we'll discuss while you're in the car which one is your own. Okay, we tend to just use the centre one, but again it would be wrong to say that that's the only reference point. Okay, so our plan now is to drive the car slowly backwards with good observations until the blue spot lines up with a bay line. Now the moment it gets to a bay line, if I keep the car moving really slowly, this whole manoeuvre is done at 1 mile an hour. If I keep the car moving very slowly, I get to the bay line, it lines up with a blue spot, I turn it really briskly to the left. It's almost like my life depends upon it. Okay, I have to steer really briskly. Now if I don't steer really briskly, I won't end up in the parking space. Okay, so that's really important. So I line the white line up with the blue spot and I steer really briskly to the left, because that's the way I want the back of the car to go. Okay, so I'm going to do my usual prepare, observe and move routine, but because we're going backwards I need to finish looking out the back window. So I'm going to check my right blind spot first. I'm moving all the way around to the left, and then as the handbrake comes off I must be looking out the back window. That's very important. So my handbrake comes off and I just move the car really slowly. Now again, every car length I have a good old look round, and then as I come back I begin to notice that my car is right by a white line and that blue spot lines up with it. Okay, so again, good look around. Now the reason I'm looking to the right is as I steer to the left really briskly, the front of the car begins to swing round to the right hand side. So I need to know what's there before I start to steer. Okay, again, every car length constantly checking. And then when the car looks like it's about to go straight, what you'll notice, particularly if we practice this in a car park where the bay lines directly ahead of us are the same, you'll notice that the yellow spot in the front window now lines up with the parking space. Okay, now if there is no white line there to use, you can actually use your door mirrors to just double check that you are now placed between those 2 white lines. Okay, again, really important, keep the car moving very slightly, steer 1.5 turns, and now look over your right hand shoulder, and you want to drive the car backwards far enough so that the white line that's at the rear just begins to disappear out of the side passenger door. Okay, it's my right side passenger door, basically over my shoulder here, and the way you would look at it is by looking over here. Okay, it's going to be roughly in that sort of area there. The moment I get there I just put the clutch down, brakes go on, feet still, handbrake neutral, and then I just wait for the instruction from the examiner. If the examiner will then either have a look in the door mirrors to check that you're between the 2 white lines, he may even open the door. Okay, so the pass criteria is that you've got to be reasonably straight, reasonably between the 2 white lines, and provided effective observations at all times. Okay, now the only way you will do that is by checking your blind spots every car length, driving the car at 1 mile an hour, and making sure that you hit the reference point we've discussed and you steer briskly. I cannot stress enough to you how quickly you need to steer. Okay, now if we were to, for example, land on a white line, or we weren't particularly straight, we do have the opportunity to move the car forwards to fix it. Now if we do move the car forward to fix it, our examiner will give us a driving error. Okay, he will give us a minor for making a mistake in our accuracy. Now we are allowed 15 of those on our learner test. So actually the worst case scenario is if you leave it like it is, if for instance you haven't got it between the 2 white lines, he won't pass you. If you were to do prepare, observe and move in the usual way, so prepare, observe and move, so remember this is only if you're not between the 2 white lines, release the handbrake whilst looking forwards. Okay, now you steer enough to the right and then enough to the left that you can then correct the mistake that you made in your accuracy. Clutch down, brakes on, handbrake neutral, and then you do exactly the same driving it backwards, and when you drove it forwards you should have made the correction, so it would have maybe gone a little bit to that, a little bit to that, and then straight, and then as we go backwards we just drive back in a perfect straight line. So let me show you that. I'm going to prepare it in a usual way, clutch up to the biting point, we're now in reverse. We check our right shoulder all the way around to our left, looking out the back window. And again, as we drive backwards, we just look every car length all the way around. We have to stop if we're going to be interrupted. That's the same on all of the manoeuvres that we will be doing. And And again, I'm looking for the same reference point again over that side of my shoulder, okay? Looking for the reference point so that when the back of the line begins to disappear out of that side window, it's time to secure the vehicle. Handbrake, neutral, relax my feet. Okay? So you'd only do that second bit if you haven't done it correctly the first time. Alright?